Greetings to all members of our church family and to all who are listening to this recording. I hope you are well, safe, and that you're managing to look after yourselves and as many other people as you can at this time where our government has clearly said that the best way we can do this is to stay indoors. It's been a very busy and upsetting week for me. I certainly did not enjoy in any ways fixing a notice to the door of our church building, announcing to the public that it is closed. One of the things I like so much about our church building of St Mary Magdalene Great Bursted is that it's open most days for people to pop into and leave a prayer request, light a candle or pray a prayer. It is sad that this is no longer possible. However, perhaps this gives us all pause to reflect that as a church we are more than a building. The people of God are the church, and while our building is locked and closed, we must not be. Instead, as the people of God, we must remain and continue to be open, welcoming, and loving to all. Our Gospel reading this week comes from St John's Gospel, chapter 11, verses 1 to 45. And I would like to share 3 reflections from this passage that seem relevant in our present circumstances. My first reflection comes from the sentence, Jesus wept, which incidentally I believe is the shortest sentence in the Bible. In this sentence, the Gospel writer shows that Jesus cares and that he's not ashamed to express his feelings. Currently, we may be all ourselves feeling all sorts of emotions about what's been going on. We may feel sad, angry, frustrated, powerless, and maybe scared. However, I believe that regardless of how we are feeling, we can all take some solace knowing that Jesus understands us. Jesus understands our feelings because as a full human being, he has experienced them for himself. Therefore, I would suggest, looking at the example of Jesus, that instead of hiding up all our feelings behind that stiff British upper lip, that we acknowledge them and bring them to our God in prayer. In brief, we must be real to God, and by doing so allow God to be real to us. We need to remember that God hears us, and we need to remember too that far from being remote, our God is still near to each and every one of us, and by his great power we will get through this. My second reflection from the passage comes from the response that Jesus makes to the request that he come immediately to help Lazarus, because Jesus doesn't. Instead, he stays away for 2 days, so that when the time arrives, when he arrives on the scene, Lazarus is dead and is buried. At this time, we may all want this to be over. We may want to know that there's an end, and when that end is to be. And if this is so, I sympathise, because I want to know as well. However, from our Gospel, just as we see Jesus arrive on the scene in his own time, God will end this in his own time too. God is in charge, not us, and God has his own plans. I remember a time, a few years ago, Father Graham and I were going to put on a seminar. We'd spent time planning it, preparing it, and we were ready for it. And on the morning, we were both ill and unable to do it. it seemed that God in his great mercy had spared some of you from our efforts. That situation was in the hands of God. And this situation is also in the hands of God. God is in control. He will not be rushed by us. The best thing we can do is to remain patient, knowing that however long this situation lasts, God is there. He will get us through this. My third reflection comes from the resurrection of Lazarus. Lazarus was indeed dead. He was buried. There was no return from this. But, in an instant, Jesus changes all this. Lazarus is resurrected. What had been dead is now alive. What had been a corpse has been changed into a living man. Reflecting this week on Lazarus' resurrection got me to also reflect that when we get to the other side of this situation, how we will be changed, because we won't be the same people we were before. Perhaps this may be seen in the reluctance we will have to shake people's hands. Perhaps this will be seen in the new skills that we required through the use of technology. But even if it is not, we will still be changed, knowing that we were the ones who got through this, when unfortunately some did not. In church, change is a dirty word, but under these circumstances the church has had to change. And my hope is that as a changed church, we are indeed serving a changed people. There were 3 friends once who were discussing death, and one of them asked, "What would you like people to say about you at your funeral?" The first of the friends said, "I would like them to say he was a great humanitarian who cared about his community." The second said, "He was a great husband and father, who is example for many to follow." And the third friend said, "I would like them to say, look, he's moving." God's church is not a corpse. It is moving, it is ministering, and it's doing so by God's grace. The church is alive, and its mission remains. Its mission to tell people everywhere of God's great love for them. To tell people that God is there for them. God will remain there for them, even under these present circumstances. And that also God will get us all through them. Amen.